In the world of entertainment, whether it comes to TV shows, movies, or video games, a broad trend that has become increasingly common in recent history is the impending doom of announcements regarding delays and setbacks. You know the feeling. A release date is set, you get excited, you mark your calendar, and then you hear that it's been pushed back. It seems as though every month brings news of a highly anticipated title or blockbuster film facing unexpected hurdles. Even multi-billion-dollar corporations fall victim to this ordeal in spectacular fashion. However, as more and more industries recognize their own shortcomings, it's become more of a double-edged sword. As consumers, we yearn for these immersive experiences and captivating stories that these titles promise, and a delay can feel like a cruel twist of fate. We get excited and then let down in the blink of an eye. But on the other hand, delays also serve a purpose. They often occur when developers or filmmakers encounter challenges that they believe will compromise the quality of the final product. We've all experienced the crushing disappointment of that one game or movie that has fallen victim to crunch culture, and delays can help mitigate those risks. Balancing creative vision, technical challenges, and the demands of a passionate fan base is a delicate task. Which brings us to the critically acclaimed and beloved franchise that has been hit pretty hard over the last couple of months. Yes, I am of course talking about The Last of Us. I know, I said I wouldn't make any more videos on these games, but the previous one I put out was so well received, and since then, recent developments have sent shockwaves throughout the community. From the departure of longtime Naughty Dog co-president Evan Wells and Neil Druckmann stepping up to lead, to the delays of both The Last of Us HBO Season 2 and Factions 2, as well as the unsubstantiated leaks pertaining to Part 3, the future of the franchise hangs in the balance. Fortunately, and unfortunately, Naughty Dog is no stranger to setbacks. With the delays to The Last of Us Part 2 back in 2020, it's safe to say that Druckmann & Co. have their fair share of experience dealing with both heightened anticipation and frustration from the fandom. Fast forward a few years, and they find themselves in a similar position, but this time on a much larger scale. About a month ago, calamity struck when Naughty Dog announced that they were postponing The Last of Us standalone multiplayer experience indefinitely and essentially going back to the drawing board. The reason behind this massive delay is Sony's overwhelming belief that it wouldn't garner enough long-term attention as a live service game. When you put their reasoning in layman's terms, it's even more disappointing from the standpoint of the consumer. They're basically saying that they wouldn't make enough money off of it in its current state. Live service games are designed to be continuously updated with new content, events, and features to keep players engaged over an extended period of time. While they offer the promise of ongoing support and fresh experiences, there is an unfortunate truth that deserves careful consideration. The popularity of this genre has influenced the industry's overall landscape. Some game studios and publishers have shifted their focus away from traditional single-player or story-driven games to invest more heavily in live service titles. It's become something of an epidemic. This has led to fewer AAA single-player experiences and reduced support for games that don't fit the live service model, even despite the demand for those types of games from a significant portion of the player base. With that said, when you take into consideration the confirmation that Factions 2 will also have a separate storyline, it's even more baffling that Naughty Dog is effectively starting from scratch over 3 years of initial development. These notions raise glaring questions about the current monetization model in the gaming landscape and how studios prioritize their content. It's important that we, as players, foster a healthy culture that values a diverse range of genres to encourage developers to continue creating innovative and memorable experiences beyond the confines of live service. Delays as such extend past the video game medium and creep their way into the world of TV and film, and for a similar reason. It all comes down to greed of the creators. In case you've been living under a rock, the Writers Guild of America and the Screen Actors Guild, American Federation of Television and Radio Artists, went on strike on May 2nd and July 13th respectively, After their contracts expired with the Alliance of Motion Picture and Television Producers, the association that represents media companies like Netflix, Disney, Paramount, Universal, and many others. The two unions are demanding increased pay and benefits, as well as greater control over how their work is used in the digital age, voicing concerns about the use of artificial intelligence in production and how it could lead to their own demise. As a result of these strikes, virtually every major Hollywood production, whether it be a TV show or movie, has been delayed or cancelled. The Last of Us HBO is no more immune. Season 1 was one of the best, if not the best, video game adaptation of all time, bolstering 24 Emmy nominations. So to see such a valuable program delayed indefinitely is nothing short of a travesty. The showrunners have announced that Season 2 is still set to release in 2025 to save some face, so that's something to look forward to barring any more unforeseen setbacks. But again, we really don't know how true that is until we inch closer to the proverbial finish line. I'm not sure the majority of people understand the true severity of these strikes. Without a clear resolution in sight, the guilds have the potential to put the TV industry in a complete chokehold for the foreseeable future, holding the power to cancel the production of our favorite series. Obviously, this is less of a Naughty Dog problem and more of an HBO problem, but it forces Neil Druckmann to pivot nonetheless. As he steps into the role of president, he's going to want to make an immediate impression. He doesn't have his beloved TV adaptation to fall back on for the foreseeable future, so a new game title would be the most likely contender for the next magnum opus for The Last of Us. So naturally, recent reports have suggested the exact opposite. Over the past few weeks, there have been rumors that Naughty Dog is working on a director's cut for The Last of Us Part 2. These rumors have been fueled by comments made from the game's composer, Gustavo Santaolalla, when he explicitly said during an interview that he had worked on new music for Part 2 and that he couldn't wait for fans to hear it. He also said that this new music would be quote-unquote part of a new version of the game. If this is true, and this project is in production as we speak, then I can't help but think that Naughty Dog's motivations are somewhat misplaced. I can't fathom what sense it would make for the studio to set aside all future The Last of Us titles just to remaster a game that is hardly 3 years old, especially one as long as Part 2's story. One of the biggest gripes within the community for Part 2 was the pacing, so adding even more content to an already jam-packed game seems like it wouldn't be the recipe for success. It could be seen as a cash grab, especially if it came with the traditional $70 PS5 title price tag. The game is already a technical masterpiece, as it looks and runs incredibly well on the PS4. Naughty Dog is already a very successful studio, and it does not need to remaster a relatively newer title in order to make money. If they were to do so, it would be a cynical attempt to exploit the game's popularity. But on the other side of the spectrum, I suppose a director's cut could be a way for Neil Druckmann to address some of the criticisms and give fans a more complete experience. But if this were the case, then that would feel like a cheap ploy in order to cater to the ones who didn't like it, instead of building upon the story that they already have in a potential Part 3. No matter which way you slice it, the whole thing runs the risk of coming across as an entirely disingenuous waste of resources. We want a new game. We deserve a new game. And yet, there remains hope that we just might get one soon. Over the past few weeks, there has been some minor rumblings pertaining to leaks regarding some new characters for Part 3. This news, while not all that groundbreaking, took the community by surprise. According to infamous Reddit leaker Daniel RPK, Naughty Dog recently put out a casting call for a new group of survivors that would be in The Last of Us Part 3. Part of the plot will be about these new faces surviving on the outskirts of a post-apocalyptic city, crammed into a Victorian house that serves as their base, taking place after the events of Part 2. These new roles include a woman named Val, who is the leader of the group, a man named Lucas, who develops a relationship with another young scavenger, a man named Ezra, who seems to be a supposed antagonist, a former soldier named Mason who must choose between his loyalty to Ezra and the House when Val gets put in charge, and a young woman named Gracis with no outstanding details. Twitter, or the now rebranded X user Viewer Anon, a popular reviewer in the movie space, substantiated these claims by adding that he's quote-unquote heard Ellie is at least as important in The Last of Us Part 3 as she was in Part 2, while linking a naughty NBC tweet that has since been deleted. He even went as far as suggesting that major motion capture for Part 3 will begin filming as soon as this year. Now, before we jump the gun, it's important to note that the leaks should be taken with a grain of salt, as there is no way to verify their authenticity. None of this new information has been confirmed by Neil Druckmann or anyone else working on these projects. Returning characters like Abby, Tommy, or Lev weren't even mentioned, and I doubt that they wouldn't be included in the supposed end of the trilogy. With that said, we can't even be sure if this casting call is for Part 3 at all. It could just as easily be for the Factions 2 storyline, and we would have no way of knowing until we get more information. The timetable for either game's release remains uncertain, so all we can do now is trust in the creators and hold out hope that everything from here on out goes to plan. All of this begs the question, what comes next? And honestly, there really is no way to tell. With everything going on between the strikes and the delays from Sony, the future of The Last of Us is distant, to say the least. However, if I were a betting man, I'd say that the first new material we get to see would be Season 2 of the HBO series, followed by the release of Part 3, then Factions 2, probably all within a few years of each other. Regardless, minor shreds of information may be all that we get for quite some time. It's difficult to pinpoint what's going on behind the scenes, but I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. Obviously, this is not what we wanted to hear when it comes to the beloved franchise, but I think a main takeaway from our past experiences pertaining to delays in media is to just be patient. It's essential to acknowledge that the challenges are a natural part of the creative process. Perfection takes time. One thing for certain, though, is that the Last of Us universe is expanding. Naughty Dog has already shown their commitment to exploring new narratives and characters within this rich world, ensuring that the legacy of this franchise continues to thrive. For now, let's put our faith in the passion and dedication of Druckmann's new and hopefully improved team, and look forward to the day where we can once again step into the hauntingly beautiful and emotionally impactful world that is The Last of Us.